Welcome back to Girl Take the Lead, the podcast where we dive into real, raw, and remarkable stories of people breaking cycles, finding hope, and leading with courage. Today's guest is Veronica Deraleau, a financial coach, fintech leader, Army veteran, and active opera singer. Yes, you're right. You got that right. She also is the author of Making Money is Simple. Stop going from paycheck to paycheck and start living your dreams. This conversation felt like both a mindset reset and a financial wake up call. Veronica doesn't just teach budgeting or spreadsheets. She invites us to go deeper into how we think about money, the beliefs we carry about it, and how those inherited or unspoken scripts may be keeping us stuck. Her ARA money method, Awaken Reframe Intention Action, is rooted in self awareness, values, creative solutions, especially for women navigating caregiving, rising costs, and financial pressures across generations. And her story, it's incredibly relatable. She paid off over $100,000 in debt within 3 years while holding down an entry level job and dreaming of being on the opera stage. We even talked about how opera helped her unlearn patterns that no longer served her, just like we have to do with money. In today's episode, we'll dive into why being money stuck has more to do with mindset than math, how caregivers, especially moms, can lovingly set financial boundaries. What happens when we stop rejecting ourselves and trust our voice? And how redefining your relationship with money is also a way of reclaiming your power. Let's jump in. There you go. Veronica, welcome to Girl Take the Lead. I'm so looking forward to this conversation with you. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. So, would you start with telling our viewers and listeners a bit about yourself?
Yes, my name is Veronica Deraleau. I am a financial coach, the author of the book Making Money is Simple. I'm a senior manager at a fintech company, an active opera singer, a U.S. Army veteran, and a Army spouse and dog mom.
So many good things we can pull from on that. Tell us more about the book.
Okay, great. Yeah, so the book starts my journey in a financial transformation. It starts with when I graduated in 2017. I graduated with my MBA, but I also had 6 figures of debt. And it takes us through that journey of all the shame and that I felt about it. At the time, I wanted to combine my life with my now husband, Mike, and we wanted to get married and buy a home and go through all of those good milestones in life. But I just felt like I would be holding us back with this mountain of debt I had accumulated, and I really wanted to dig myself out of it as soon as possible.
Mhm.
So when I got my first job out of my MBA, I just had this experience of managing multi-million dollar property budgets. And it was only then, not through getting my MBA, that I was able to witness how high net worth individuals manage their money. And I was able to finally apply it to my personal finances
Mhm.
and take my entry level salary and get out of the 100K of debt in 3 years.
Oh, congratulations on that. Is that what you refer to as money stuck? What is money stuck?
Yeah, so the book is it's a story, it tells personal stories and it goes through my ARIA money model for money. So the book is really about a particular mindset that you need to have. So to go from stuck to free with your money. So when I talk about money stuck in the book, I'm referring to a state where you're unaware of how you got to your present financial situation when you're stuck. And you may have increased your income, but you're not seeing any progress and you don't know why. So it's really about what keeps us in these loops and like this lack of awareness around the societal pressures and norms that keep us stuck.
Yeah. Well, you did a wonderful passage in the book about money freedom. Do you mind giving us a read on that? Because that was so good. Love that.
Sure thing. Okay. This is from page 10 of my book. Money freedom doesn't happen by accident. On the contrary, it can only happen when we shift our worldview, how we see money, how we see ourselves, and how we see ourselves in relation to money. Do you think money is for other people? Do you think making money is hard? Do you respect money or do you resent how it makes you feel? Do you feel like the American dream is slipping out of your reach? These are questions to consider if the idea of going all in with money intrigues you. In fact, I urge you to answer every question I will pose to you in this book because they will challenge the way you think. Change starts in your mind.
Mm, so good. So the connection then between being stuck and being freedom, like you said, it begins with awareness, but it also sounds like you really see that we need to kind of dig in a bit and ask some questions um, about how we got there.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that it's hard for us to make personal transformation if we don't have a vision for where we want to go. And I feel like people get stuck in resignation because of that.
Mhm.
And so we so that's what how my ARIA money model goes through this framework of awakening, reframing old limiting beliefs, setting new intentions with a clear vision, and then taking action. But
Mhm.
we might have these invisible scripts from the past, and we might hold resentments or expectations, societal expectations or cultural expectations, and we might be carrying around this baggage that keeps us stuck. And regardless of whether it's true or not that we started maybe in a disadvantaged place with money or we never learned about money, it's our responsibility to take ownership of that and realize what is serving us and maybe what beliefs need to be kicked to the curb for us to move forward.
Right. Well, I'm curious how opera played a role in your freedom. Because,
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to talk about it. So I talk about this in the book, but opera, so that I talk about that clear vision for the future. Opera was one of the reasons that I was so motivated to become debt free. In my 20s, I just wanted to be an opera singer. And Elizabeth Gilbert has this quote that in Big Magic, it says, "Debt will always be the abattoir of creative dreams." And I always remembered that and took that very seriously. I've always also been inspired at how scrappy artists can be when all they want to do is perform their craft. So they get really creative with their money. So they often inspire me when I'm coming up with creative ways of managing money or decreasing expenses when I'm working with clients, and even in my past when I was trying to keep my expenses super low.
Mhm.
So that was always my clear intention and guiding force in my life, besides, wanting to move forward in my personal life with my husband. But also I wanted to be free to create art and not have this like keep me from those dreams. And then there's like something in the book that I talk about how opera and money can be similar in that so much of becoming a very good singer is undoing bad habits and
Mhm.
relieving yourself of pressure. So it could be like actual physical pressure, but so much of it is unlearning bad habits.
Oh, interesting connection there. I guess when you go to sing, you developed habits on how to sing. And then if you want to like go into opera, it's a whole other way to sing. Is that what happens?
Yeah, so it's so interesting. Like this is well known, I think, in opera, but when you listen to a baby, they are such small creatures and they can produce such a large sound because we are born knowing how to, efficiently pull our chords together and create like a huge sound.
Huh.
And then over the course of time, we just lose what the innate muscle memory, like the good muscle habits that we have, just over time. And whatever you'll hear different ways of speaking in different cultures, and Um,
Yeah.
different, so that all comes with us. And then yeah, and then when you have to like unlearn these things because opera is really projected, controlled screaming at the end of the day.
Wow. I never knew that. That was so interesting to hear about that. What about, well, let's go in a little bit deeper about the ARIA model. And there's a good passage that you wrote about on page 14. I think that would explain a lot. Could you read that for us?
Sure, sure thing. Okay. My ARIA money model digs into the why behind our money behaviors, including breaking the habits of muscle memory, going through the motions of life out of habit so we can gain money freedom. ARIA is an acronym that spells out my four-step process for going from money stuck to money free. This is how making money becomes simple. A stands for awaken. We begin by opening our eyes to the way our mind thinks, because that is always what determines the present day reality we live in. Until now, you're thinking on autopilot. The question to ask yourself is, how did my mind get me here? This forces us to give up the blame game. R stands for reframe. This is where we consider our mind's old habits. How will you change the way you think so you can change your life? What do you notice about your thoughts as they are occurring, and how can you shift your response in the moment to your new conscious thinking? I stands for intention. Do you intend to take full responsibility for achieving money freedom? Are you sure about that? That question may be hard to answer now, but once I take you through the awaken and reframe steps, you'll know exactly how to answer it. A stands for action. Taking action is the fourth step, you'll notice, not the first. That's because taking action, trying to save more and spend less, is futile if you haven't nailed the first three steps. You will spin your wheels and find yourself falling back into old habits. Sure, you might save some money and you may pay down some debt, but old patterns will quickly return as soon as life challenges you beyond your ability to cope.
Well, I'm curious from what you see there from a generational perspective. Like, do you see it easier for younger generations to kind of wake up and get into awaken pretty easily, or and older generations kind of resistant more? Or do you see anything there? Are there any insights?
Yeah, what I've been seeing a lot, I would say there's so much on social media. There's a lot more awareness of needing to become financially literate that's on social media for those younger generations. So
Mhm.
that's a positive. I would say as a negative, there's also social media and there's a lot of like the comparison trap. And it's hard to know what the everyday person is, what their life is really like and what's sort of overblown and
Mhm.
overrepresented on social media. So I think that there's pros and cons there. Um, I- I've s- I'm seeing a lot that's affecting all generations, though, the whole comparison thing. I think what has been striking to me since starting the business last year and launching the book is how many moms there are that are coming to me super worried because they're caring for both young children and then also perhaps elderly adults, but they have
Mhm.
so much pressure on them.
Uh-huh.
So that's one thing that was pretty striking to me is families are just in a bind and a pinch, especially since COVID and
Uh-huh.
with the inflated cost in the last few years.
Yeah. I would guess that the amount of debt is probably in, there might be a spike to it right now. I don't know. Do you think that there are more people in more debt today?
I think so. I mean, I've seen like the stats, like we've spent down our savings as a nation since we accumulated a lot of savings during that COVID era when we weren't spending money.
Yeah.
And that the debt is at the consumer debt in particular isn't at an all-time high, and it's easy to rack it up when the rates are higher too.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that, and I'm seeing a lot of people do some extreme things like taking the equity out of their home, for example, to try to get control of that debt, but then that ultimately puts you in a worse spot in the future.
Yeah. Well, you talked a little bit about some barriers and some limiting beliefs that kind of keep us from getting started. What do you see there with the people you work with?
Yeah. So I'm seeing, like I said, a lot of people just very overextended. And I'm seeing that it's interesting. You think of people's spending triggers as being something like impulsive or that they're spending on wants. Like those are the obvious things. But then the super interesting thing I'm seeing is when their spending trigger is actually wanting to care for others.
Oh,
That's a super tough one because they think they're doing something good
yeah.
and that they have these societal expectations like, oh, I need to provide the best for my kids and that kind of thing. But I would argue that a more valuable lesson would be teaching your kids the concept of trade-offs from an earlier age,
Mhm.
because then they see you trying to, trying to be intentional with your money. Like it is not an infinite resource, actually. And I will be the adult in the room and I will make hard decisions so
Yeah.
that you can flourish in the future. And also so that they're not putting their kids in a bind later on if they either don't have the resources when they're older or like can't care for themselves when they're older. So
Right.
I think that's something that in wanting to be the the of service in the now, they need to be able to make hard decisions.
Yeah. Well, and almost accepting that you can't have it all.
Right. Yeah. Needing to actually prioritize, like, okay, what resources are at our disposal and what will be the top priorities. And if we need to get creative with the other stuff, like, how can we do that? And actually, that's another thing that I've seen is when I was working at that commercial real estate firm with the high net worth individuals, one of the things that struck me was just that almost nothing was not on the table. Like even if they hadn't done it before, they would figure out like, okay, who's a resource? Who can I ask? It was never like we can't do it or we can't figure it out. It was like we just need to figure it out, but it's
Wow.
possible. Everything was like within the realm of possibility. So often, I have to work with my clients to hear themselves. And this is another like music related thing, like being able to critically listen to yourself
Mhm.
and hear when something is not serving you and be able to say, yeah, actually, this is possible if we get super creative and figure out, okay, is there a cheaper alternative? Is there a free alternative? Is this actually something that can be delayed, maybe? Can we pool resources together across generations? Can we share things with a neighbor? Like, or is this just like, we just need to access, like, we need to cut this all together. So, being able to ruthlessly prioritize, like, what are our top values in this family and being able to align the resources with those top values. And like you said, it's not an infinite resource. So we do
Right.
need to make some decisions here.
So cool how you've got the creativity worked in. Because I think when we go to shame and we feel bad,
Mhm.
oh, I've spent too much. That it goes out the window because we're in ourselves and we can't see any other alternative.
Right. And it's not inspiring. It doesn't make you want
Right.
to come every day to the table and like do the best you can because it's like a defeating way of thinking of it rather than like, actually, we are going to make this happen because we're trying to get to this long-term vision that is inspiring. It
Yeah.
doesn't serve anyone to be in that.
Yeah. I think we need to take a clip of that from you and just have everybody listen to it so that there's movement and there's like you said action, the ability to do something differently than just blame, as you said, the other person. Yeah. Yeah, been there a few times.
Mm.
So, have there been any surprises since writing your book that you go, I didn't see that one?
Mm. Yes. So when I wrote my book, you'll see reference like rising professionals and creatives, like as the target demo that I started thinking that I would service. Like I was thinking back to where I started on my journey. I had just graduated and had a lot of student loans. Um, and I thought that I might attract a similar demographic. But it's been my surprise that actually the story is resonating across many generations,
Yeah.
all walks of life. And the thing that I really shocked me, I'm like happy to work with anybody and anyone who's feeling stuck. But it's really been humbling that families and mothers and have reached out to me even, so I think I tend to see mid 30s almost through 50s
Mhm.
reaching out because I think once you have the family formation, things really start to feel, you really start to feel the pressure. So,
Yeah.
um, I don't get me wrong, people have reached out to me with like, oh my gosh, like, think I'm so glad I heard your story about being able to pay off the student loans because a lot of people do have the weight of student loans.
I know somebody
Um,
very close to my family who does.
Yeah, exactly. But then it's like once you have student loans and then you have kids and then it's sort of
Yeah.
just a pile-on. So I think that it's been super interesting to just see all walks of life be resonating with the message.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned too, is there anything there that's kind of, in addition to being the mother and the caregiver, perhaps, and the concern there, is there a shift going on for women becoming the financial center of families? You know, back in the day, there was, that was more of the male role in, um, a traditional marriage. But it seems like that's not the case today. Like it's kind of anybody could really, and maybe even the partnership needs to work together, that
Hmm.
it's not one person's job to have the financial well-being of the family taken care of, that it actually needs to be both
Yeah.
partners, however the marriage is put together.
I am seeing equal opportunity males and females reach out to me. That, they talk about their financial situation. I do something that also surprised me is how many families don't manage their money together.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's just a product of the time that we live in where people do tend to keep their money, even when they do get married. I've seen a lot of people keep their money separate
Mm-hmm.
and not manage their money together. So it's interesting, like you can both separately be successful, and there's all sorts of ways that you can manage your money together. I think it's really difficult to have the conversation if there's one person who is all in and then the other one is not. That is a very difficult
Wow.
thing because it doesn't really matter if one partner's doing really well if the other partner is not on the same page and they're
Yeah.
not, you know, managing their money equally as well, or they could be even working counter to the goal.
Yeah. Oh, so interesting. I think so much of it is how we've learned to relate to money. Like it's not just generational, but it's like almost like our inheritance of some beliefs that are kind of invisible to us, I think, as kids. Abundance doesn't show up. Scarcity shows up in some cases. It's interesting how you have to kind of unlearn, like you said, unlearn
Mm.
um singing. It's like unlearn. these beliefs that are very deep, I think, into our framework as people. Yeah. And we grew up with them. So we thought that's the way the world was. And yeah, anyway.
Yeah, totally. I can 100% relate to that. That's in my book as well. Like I didn't know that I had a very specific like immigrant household mindset
Yeah.
until I went into high school practically and was like, oh, there's other ways that people live. Like I just didn't know how ingrained it was in me. And then college, same thing. Like I was
Yeah.
like, wow, other people live very differently. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, um, how can our listeners find you, Veronica? Because I think, and get your book because I think it could help so many people.
yes, thank you for asking. So you can find my book, Making Money is Simple, and the subtitle is Stop Going from Paycheck to Paycheck and Start Living Your Dreams. That is available on Amazon in print and Kindle.
Mhm.
And then you can also find me at my website, my blog as well, at makingmoneyissimple.com. And then on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Pinterest at Making Money is Simple.
Oh, great. Okay. So, Veronica, what would you tell your 20 something self today?
Oh God, I would say to take more risk. I would say be courageous and take more risk and don't pre-reject yourself because I did that a lot. I was always trying to be perfect and there is so much valuable learning that occurs even in trying and failing and receiving feedback. There's so much value there, even if the feedback is crickets.
Yeah.
There's so much valuable feedback in there. So I would tell myself to take way more risks.
Interesting. I thought you might say something like, girlfriend, you're going to need to save more or forget that student loan right now. But it sounds like you're saying, no, just the opposite. Like, go ahead and live and take some risks.
Yeah, I mean there were tactically speaking, I would say get started investing as soon as possible.
All right. Right.
If that's
Yeah.
more of what you were going for, but yeah, I was so careful, I think. And obviously I totally missed the when you're in school and you don't see that amount, ballooning up, that was totally missed. But as far as putting myself out there and not pre-rejecting myself for jobs or for schools that I thought were out of reach.
Mhm.
Don't pre-reject yourself.
So good. Lastly, I think you had a chance to go to our online store and take a look. What spoke to you?
Yes, the trust your gut snarky cat spoke to me. Is that a
Sounds
common
perfect.
one?
Well, he's one of my faves because he's got such a look on him, like, and he's wrapped up in the red threads. Like, yeah, we get so wrapped up in these things. And it makes sense though with what you just said about what you would tell your 20 something self, take risks. And you're saying, trust your gut. So, oh, perfect. Thank you so much. It was such a great conversation to kind of open ourselves up in this area, which I think a lot of us have trouble talking about, and we don't want people to know.
Yes. Isn't that that's the hard thing too. I think there has been a cultural shift
Yeah.
with it being more online that hopefully we can undo this as a taboo topic and we can
Yeah.
talk about it more.
Thank you. Thank you again for coming on the show, Veronica.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
so much for having me, Yolanda.
Thanks so much for joining us today. If Veronica's story reminded you that you're not alone and that money freedom is possible with the right mindset, I'd love for you to leave a review wherever you're listening. It helps more women find the show and start their own journey from stuck to free. If someone you know is feeling overwhelmed by debt, caregiving, or the weight of money shame, send this episode their way. Veronica's ARA model might be just the framework they need to take that first brave step. And hey, don't forget to check out Veronica's book, Making Money is Simple, available on Amazon, and visit her at makingmoneysimple.com for more support, tools, and encouragement. You can also find us on YouTube at Girl Take the Lead. And yes, you can listen on YouTube music too. And in our Facebook group, Girl Take the Lead, we're having deeper conversations and cheering each other on. So join us there. Here are a few of my favorite quotes from Veronica. You can't just budget your way out of shame. You have to reframe. Your values, not guilt, should guide your financial decisions. Don't pre-reject yourself. Even trying and failing is feedback. And lastly, debt will always be the abattoir of creative dreams. Here are 3 key takeaways from today's episode. 1, money is emotional. The path to freedom starts with awareness and curiosity, not spreadsheets. 2, caregiving doesn't mean overextending. Modeling trade-offs is an act of love. And 3, you can be creative with your money and still honor your goals and dreams. Coming up next week on Girl Take the Lead, we'll be joined by Catherine Fabrizio, a psychotherapist, mother, and author of the bestseller, The Good Daughter Syndrome, Help for Empathetic Daughters of Narcissistic, Borderline, or Difficult Mothers trapped in the role of the good daughter. And oh boy, you guys, what a book and what a conversation. If you're a good daughter like me, you'll want to watch or listen to this one over and over and over again. It could really change your life and feel like you're seen. Oh my gosh. Until then, take care of your heart, lead with courage, and remember, we've got this. Talk soon. Bye.